The Congress election for president has gone just as predicted, and the real questions begin now. In choosing Mallikarjun Kharge, has the Congress lost an opportunity to reimagine itself? I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo story. This is our big political focus on the program today. Mallikarjun Kharge, an 80-year-old veteran of politics with Sonia Gandhi there moments after winning the election to run the party. The first time someone from who's not a Gandhi family member, rather, will be leading the party in 24 years. The last non-Gandhi to lead the party was Sitaram Kesri, and we all know how badly that ended. Mr. Kharge defeated Mr. Shashi Tharoor. Shashi polled a little over 1,000 votes, and Mr. Kharge took a little over 7,000 votes, in fact, closer to 8,000. But Mallikarjun Kharge has been widely described as an establishment candidate, as the one that the Gandhi family was betting on. And Rahul Gandhi let it be slip like everybody else. He expected no surprises in this election, even referencing Mr. Kharge's name as the next president while counting for the votes was still on. But for a party that is in an existential crisis, is certainly at an inflection point, has the Congress chosen the status quo today? Or, as fans of Mallikarjun Kharge argue, that there is potent symbolism in the fact that a Dalit is leading the party for only the second time. The last time was Jagjeevan Ram. Let's introduce our guests on the program today as we decode these results and what it might mean for the future of the Congress. Joining us on the program today is veteran journalist and author Sagarika Ghosh. Sagarika, it's great to have you for the first time, and we hope the first of many times on our platform. Good to see you. Also joining us is Sadanand Thumi, Wall Street Journal columnist, forever contrarian and provoking the Congress and liberals into sort of disarray. We'll see what he does today. Also joining us from the Congress, its spokesperson, Charanjit Singh Sapra. Good to see you, Mr. Sapra. Dr. Shruti Kapila, a professor at the Cambridge University and a well-known historian and author, is also with us. Good to have you back with us, Shruti, as always. And also back with us is Professor Subhajit Naskar, who has said that the whole sort of noise and support for Shashi Tharoor is a kind of Anglophone elitism, and that the criticism of Mr. Kharge is a kind of anti-Dalit sentiment. Is that really the case? Is that what people have been responding to? So much really to unpack here. Uh, Let me start by getting Mr. Sapra. It's only fair that the Congress spokesperson gets an official say before we open this up. You know, this can be argued many ways, but the fact that Rahul Gandhi let it slip that even he expected Mr. Kharge to win the election even while the counting was on, and we have that clip, we'll play it in a moment, that makes everybody believe that this wasn't a real election. Even Shashi Tharoor till yesterday was alleging irregularities. But more than all of that, do you not think the party has chosen same old today?
See, Barkha, I would like to say that the election process has been fairly fair, and everybody has recognized probably whatever the complaints which Mr. Shashi Tharoor brought to the notice of Mr. Madhusudan Mistry, he has clarified everything. Around 9,915 PCC delegates, out of which 9,500 odd they have voted, and the results are out. Mallikarjun Kharge ji, obviously, he's a veteran. He has a political career of more than 50 years, electoral politics, and on various positions he has been. Of course, the Congress party will be benefited by his experience and his electoral politics. And moreover, if you tend to say that he's a Dalit and after 50 years, a Dalit has taken over this chair, I feel we might get an advantage out of it. I'm not sure. But Congress party with Kharge ji in place will be coming up, with new reforms. And of course, within the Congress party, new decisions will be taken,
And,
and it
and
will be a collective process, I should say.
And who will be the real boss, Mr. Kharge or Mr. Rahul Gandhi?
No, of course, Mr. Kharge, the president, the newly elected president, will be the boss. As you have rightly seen that Srimati Sonia Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi ji, they went to his residence to congratulate him. See, the stature of the post or the president has to be kept, and I feel there will be no interference. he will be free to take all the decisions which are in the interest of the party.
Right. The problem with what you're saying is that Mr. Kharge, through the campaign himself, repeatedly underlined that he would be taking his instructions from the Gandhi family. So even though, Mr. Sapra, you describe Mallikarjun Kharge as the real boss of the party, I'm not sure how many takers there are for that. Rahul Gandhi was very careful in answering that question today. He said the Congress president will now decide what Rahul Gandhi's role should be. A very, very mindful statement, except for the fact that he let it slip that he too expected Mr. Kharge to be the next president even before the votes were counted. Listen in, and then I'll open it up for the rest of the panel.
My role, of course, I cannot comment on Congress president's role. That is for Mr. Kharge to comment on. I'm very clear as far as my role is concerned. The Congress president will decide what my role is and how I am to be deployed. As far as the Congress party is concerned, the final authority in the Congress party is the Congress president, and we will have a new Congress president, and that gentleman will decide exactly how the Congress party moves forward.
Now, let me take this to you first, Sagarika. Rahul Gandhi has been careful. He's been careful to sort of reinforce the fact that the boss will be the Congress president. But I don't think anybody believes that in 2024, Mr. Kharge is going to be the political face of the party. He's probably going to be the what JP Nadda is to the BJP, an organization man, maybe building alliances and consensus within the party and perhaps with potential allies. You wrote a piece where you argued that Shashi Tharoor was just a disruption that the Congress needed. You further argued that just because Shashi is erudite, speaks English well, does not make him an elite. In fact, that's something that Tharoor has also ferociously contested, pointing to the fact that he's a three-time member of parliament. How do you see what has happened today? I think everybody expected it, but what does it really mean for the party and for politics?
Absolutely, Barkha. I don't think there's any surprise about the result. I think from day one, it was clear that Mr. Kharge was the official, non-official candidate, and that he had the blessings of the High Command, and that he was, part of the Congress establishment. He was a Congress establishment candidate, and Shashi Tharoor was very much the outsider. Having said that, Barkha, I think it's a good thing that the Congress has had these organizational elections. I think inner party democracy has been asserted, and that is all to the good. I'd like to take you back to what you said about the post of the Congress president. What used to be a highly coveted post before the elections actually was revealed to be a bit of a poison chalice, because several people were sounded and they refused to take up the challenge. For example, Ashok Gehlot was asked to be a candidate, and he said no because he was not comfortable with Sachin Pilot becoming his successor in Rajasthan. Mukul Wasnik was sounded. He said no because he preferred not to. Kamal Nath was sounded. He said no because he said my karma bhumi is in Madhya Pradesh. It seems as if people really didn't want to even be the Congress president, because frankly, it's a lot of responsibility with no power. If the Gandhis have power and have all the power and no responsibility, this Congress president will have all the responsibility and none of the power, and be the fall guy for all the failures. Having said all of that, I think Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge is of course a tall leader, a veteran. He's a 9-time MLA, 2-time MP, leader of the opposition in the House, and he's a stalwart. But he's very much part of the old order. So it's the old order changeth, yielding place to the older. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Tharoor, I believe, and I strongly contest that he's elitist and that he's disconnected and that he's erudite. He's a 3-time Lok Sabha member of parliament. He is an aspirational disruptionist figure. I think by choosing Mr. Kharge, my personal opinion is that the Congress has miserably failed to read the zeitgeist. I think the zeitgeist at the moment of the so-called New India is for the younger, more disruptionist communicator, someone who is telegenic, let's face it, and someone who is out there going to get a new constituency. Tharoor is in a position where he can actually attract the young, he can attract the urban middle class, he can attract the middle class at large. All these constituencies are deserting the Congress very badly. Also, Barkha, I would like to say that, does the Congress want to win elections or not? Does it want to get newer constituencies back to it or not? Or is it more interested in keeping the well entrenched
Yeah.
network going, keeping the old order going, keeping the status quo structure going? But as you rightly say, when a party is in this kind of existential crisis, when it's fighting for its very survival, it needs to take risks. And the Congress has shown that it is completely risk averse and resistant to change.
Let me bring in Professor Subhajit Naskar before I get in Dr. Shruti Kapila and Sadanand Dhume. Subhajit, you and I have had this argument before. I personally believe that the Congress missed a chance here. This by no means is any sort of disrespect to Mallikarjun Kharge or the fact that he came up the hard way, that he's had a long innings in politics. It's simply a cold back of the envelope instinct about charisma and what would work with today's voter. Yet you have in your commentary called this kind of analysis elite. You've even suggested that it's casteist. Can I bring you in, Subhajit?
Well, this whole binary of old order and the general Jed order or the new order is quite oxymoron. Given the way Indian society has evolved over the years, even that today you have all the atrocities, you have all kinds of prejudices in Indian society, and we live with that, and much of that has not yet changed, Barkha. So the point that I'm trying to say, there's two broad points that's coming to my head, is that the loyalty question. What is this big fuss about loyalty with the loyal about Gandhis and all that? My question is, if there's anyone who is a chief minister or a state president in any party, can they basically go beyond the high command or challenge the high command and yet stay in that post? You take BJP's case, which is the most successful party right now, probably on earth as a political party. I mean, you can challenge Modi and Amit Shah, and you can be the BJP president, or you can stay as the cabinet minister, or a state president, or a state minister, or a state chief minister. It's impossible nearly. So now coming to the second point is that if you are loyal to Gandhi family, I mean, what's wrong with it? I mean, if you talk to Rahul Gandhi, if you talk to Sonia Gandhi, what's wrong in it? And remember, here is a man called Kharge who would be, if quote unquote takes orders from Gandhis, that man has lived through the grassroots, and that man has lived through the ranks, and
But
he's not
can
an
this
ordinary
man
man.
help the Congress to
He
win
is been
elections?
part of.
I think the question is not Mr. Kharge's legacy in politics. The question is, Subhajit, can he, better than Shashi Tharoor, put a public face on for a reimagined Congress? I think that's the question. We must frame what we're talking
Well,
about, right?
Barkha, this entire analogy of public face through which lens? Which lens are we using to understand that very analogy of public face? Are we using a liberal Lutein face? Are we imagining a face from the margin? That's what I'm
Yeah.
I'm trying to sort of understand.
So, so it's
So
very,
here
yeah.
it's not really the discussion we four or five are having. There are millions and almost billions of citizens, those are out there and
I
living,
was
most
just
of them in the rural
smiling.
spaces.
I was just smiling because Latin's gang today coined.
I'm not calling
Uh,
it a gang, but I'm just trying to tell you
yeah,
that
it's just
there is a
interesting how these. I
broader
get what you're saying.
constituency out there, and you
No,
know
I get what you're saying.
how
I
millions of peoples are living on the margin, and do they not really
and I
matter?
and I
I mean,
and
did
I
we
actually
really
think you have
ask
an interesting
what is their
question.
perception about Kharge, and what is
Can I
their
just jump
perception
in here and take that to
about
Sadanand and
correct?
Shruti? Yeah, give me a second, Subhajit. Sadanand, there's an interesting question here, and that question is this. For a long time, especially when the Congress was in power and the BJP was in opposition, the Congress was the party with the pedigree. The Congress was the party of the drawing rooms of Delhi. And the BJP was the middle class party. The BJP was the party that you could imagine sort of dropping in for chai at your middle class neighbor's home. I think Subhajit raises an interesting point that Shashi, in his view, would have reaffirmed that image of the party and not shed the elitism, the entrenched elitism, if you will, that the party has long been associated with. How do you respond to that?
So, I think that's kind of unfortunate. I think that frame of analysis is unfortunate, right? And what has happened over the years in Indian politics is that people have started to confuse excellence with elitism. Shashi Tharoor is a highly competent person. He is extremely erudite. He has written many books. He's well traveled. He's had a successful career in international diplomacy. all of these in a normally in a well-functioning political system would be seen as assets. But somehow, in this, with the sort of anti-elitism that inflects a lot of Indian politics, they are seen in his case as liabilities. I would agree with that analysis if this was someone incapable of winning a Lok Sabha election. But this is a person, as you pointed out, and others have, that has won three Lok Sabha elections. But Barkha, I want to sort of, I want to engage with Sagarika's point, which I think is the heart of this, and I want to just start with a note of disagreement there. I would agree with everything she said about Shashi Tharoor if Congress was a normal political party. If this was a party that was like the Tories or like Labour or the Christian Democrats or any other kind of normal functioning political party in the West which has leadership change. But as Sagarika knows well, having written a biography of Indira Gandhi, this has not been the nature of the Congress party since 1969. It is a family firm. The brand that they sell is in fact the Gandhi family. Now you've had two types of sort of you've had two types of leaders. You've had leaders who've had charisma, like Indira Gandhi, and you've had leaders who've lacked charisma but have had competence, like Sonia Gandhi. The problem they have is that Rahul Gandhi has neither charisma nor competence. But this doesn't change the fact that the party needs to be led by someone in the family, not because that's good for politics in general, but because that is simply the nature of the Congress party. So even if Shashi Tharoor had won this election, he would not be able to change the DNA of the Congress party. He would not be able to change the fact that the way they conceptualize politics, the way they've sort of, many of them have maneuvered in politics over decades, is by trying to read the tea winds and tea
But
leaves
then
and
you're
see
but then
what the
you're
Congress is
suggesting
saying.
that the Congress is unchangeable. You're also forgetting that Indira Gandhi was expelled from her own party and then spawned an entirely new
Exactly, and
party,
that
Congress
is the
I.
party.
So let's also
And
remember
that is the
history.
party we're talking about. That is the party. The party of today is the successor of Indira Gandhi's party. It is not the successor of the 1885 Congress party. So that is my
Okay.
first point. And so I think they need to be led by a family member. That is just the reality of that party. I believe that Rahul Gandhi has failed numerous times. Perhaps it's time to give his sister a chance. But to imagine that this party will somehow rejuvenate itself with a non-Gandhi family member while the Gandhi family remains in politics. If the Gandhi family step back from politics, we could get something like PDIP in Indonesia, where Jokowi takes
Hmm.
over and Megawati is in the background. But as long as the Gandhi family is in politics, this is their brand, this is their franchise, and no non-family member is going to assert power.
Okay, I think that's a perfect cue to get the historian, the professional historian, into the conversation. Shruti, it's over to you. Of course, we should remind our audience, some of which is very young, doesn't even remember that Indira was thrown out of her own party after
Yes,
an election and then gave birth to the Congress I, as we now know
yes.
it, or the INC as it calls itself,
Mhm.
the Indian National Congress. But go ahead.
Well, thank you. I'm missing Han Market after all the talk of Lutyens Delhi. But I would say that actually, just to kind of actually say two things. One very immediate and one that returns to the past. The immediate thing is that historically, the Congress has always divided the role between mobilization and party structure. Sadanand is correct to the fact that it's only an aberration in Indira Gandhi's time where the party, the prime minister, and the political leader were the same thing. And that sense, that was the aberration. But historically, whether you look at Gandhi or whether you look even further down to Manmohan Singh and Sonia Gandhi, these roles have been separate. And to that sense, it's returning to that. Given that Bharat Jodo is happening, there seems to be some kind of fight back in the Congress, which is also coming from the southern states, which is also interesting in that sense. It's not just caste, but also region that the Congress is seeking to project with Mr. Kharge. I would agree with my colleague from Jadavpur that actually, yes, a caste is the basic structure of Indian society. Whether we can actually, one of the interesting questions for analysts is that the BJP has moved into very successfully into caste analysis. So the OBC parties, as we are seeing, are easily getting denuded. Is there something that is going to come out from Dalit politics, given that the BSP no longer commands any attention in the northern heartlands? So I actually think it's an opportunity. Where is there an opportunity lost? It is precisely in the kind of lamentations of Sadanand Dubey and Sagarika Ghosh that actually Tharoor is a face who is acceptable to an English mainstream media in India, which is not to denigrate it or to deny its importance, but that's really his He would have been a media savvy president. He should be definitely made, the chief spin doctor of the party. In that sense, win Sagarkar's point of getting the new India, the new telegenic face. But I don't know how much that opportunity means any longer, given that Modi himself has denied any role for the media, and maybe perhaps the Congress is playing catch up with that politics, where the media itself has been relegated. So, and my final point is actually about the Congress. And I was actually quite stunned when very close members of the G23 refused to support Mr. Shashi Tharoor. And I was surprised because, this was a group that had been shouting for, 2 years. And the sense of bad faith, even for their own comrade, made me think that what is a Congress politician, which is what I wrote in my last piece, that they're very transactional. A certain kind of transactional politician has also come to an end. In that sense, actually, Tharoor has done a very good job in actually, you can now identify people who are spineless within the Congress. And
Okay.
it's yeah, that is also there to be seen. It has not come up that people who supported him till a year ago, till a month ago, openly tweeted and, endorsed Kharge. And no one asked
Yes.
them why.
Yes, I think that's a fair point, but I think the heart of this debate perhaps needs to go back to what Sadanand raised. Can this party ever have a non-Gandhi occupying the epicenter of power, right? Not a post, but power, and be in at that steering wheel. Now, many things have been said about Shashi Tharoor in this program, but one has to acknowledge that I do not remember the last time a Congress leader unequivocally said that if he were to become president, it's a he in this case between both the candidates, he would not take his instructions from the Gandhi family. I don't think, please correct me if we have heard a Congress leader of significance making that kind of comment. I just want to play out a tiny clip from an interview of mine, and then I'll come back to all of you listening.
Surely a president who's elected in a process from which they have excluded themselves will have a certain amount of power and authority of his own, or I could have said her own, but all the three names you talked about are men. That person would have a certain legitimacy and power of his own, which I think will constitute, if you like, the authority with which to deal with the party. Now, I'm not in any way criticizing the Gandhi family. I think that they are somebody, as a family, their DNA is inextricably tied up with the DNA of the Congress party. A self-respecting president would essentially want to be exercising his own authority, especially if he's won it through a hard-fought election.
When I hear you say this, a self-respecting president would want to exercise his own authority. People would listen to this and say, Shashi, this is exactly the reason the Gandhis will ensure you never win. What would you say to them?
I'd say possibly. I mean, I know you're not the only person to make these comments. I'm surrounded by cynics every day in our political space, and I've been hearing this a lot.
Okay, let's bring in Sadanand and then Charanjit and then Sagarika. Sadanand, go ahead. I mean, I was quite struck by just the bluntness of that commentary. I think Shashi Tharoor, it'll be interesting to see where his career goes from here. Will he be now given a more significant role? Will he be marginalized? We don't know. But the real debate is, can you be something in the Congress without the Gandhis? To which Professor Subhajit says, in which party can you be someone without the endorsement of the top leaders? In the BJP, you can't be anybody without Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah.
No, I absolutely agree with him. I think he's completely right over there. So I think the question really is that I think a lot of the people who've been fantasizing about a Congress revival under Tharoor are fundamentally misreading the nature of this beast. This beast is only going to be revived if it's revived by a family member. And I think that the more important question is not what happens to Tharoor's career. I mean, that's obviously of interest to political junkies. But the real question is what happens to Congress. This is a sinking ship. Is the ship going to continue to sink? Is it going to sink faster, or is it going to be revived? My own view is that that they are going to continue to sink because they have created a situation now where they have a president who, for all his political career and all of the rest of it, is not a person of any charisma or any standing in the Hindi heartland. Is not really able to speak Hindi particularly fluently, is not the kind of person who is able to take advantage of modern media and social media and so on, where I think Shashi Tharoor would have had an edge, and is very clearly in the eyes of most people seen as a placeholder. I mean, let's not forget that, not to be ageist or anything, but this is a person who's 80 years old. He's not going to be around. He's not going to be running Congress in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. So he's a placeholder. And I think the unstated hope among the Congress faithful is that Rahul Gandhi will finally get his act together. Now, I think that's a sort of open question, but I think most pundits would agree with me that I think at this point we've waited a long time for that, and it's not happening.
I was going to go to Charan Sapra, but Subhajit, you wanting a brief interjection there? Professor Subhajit, go ahead.
I just remembered that Mr. Kharge and Mr. Joe Biden, the date of birth is quite of the same year. So, and none of these liberals, they basically age-shamed Joe Biden. But when it came to Mallikarjun Kharge, all of them jumped on him and sort of started saying his age of this will be going against his advantage. So this is clearly a kind of propaganda which is being run to malign Mr. Kharge, and who
I must get Sadaran's bit because it's his adopted.
I have to.
Sadaran, you're in DC. You're in DC right now. Biden beat Trump. No one.
I hate to break this.
Did he write it? Did he write?
I hate to break this to you, Professor, but I'm not exactly a fan of Joe Biden either.
But did you take his age up in any conversation?
Yeah, I think I sort of. I think I'll say it right here. I think that he has serious cognition issues, and I think that is partly driven by his age. I'm not making that charge about Mallikarjun Kharge. I'm actually making a different point, which is more about longevity and where the future of the party is. But let's not get sidetracked. But I have no problem sort of raising the same issue.
Can I bring in Mr. Sapra and then Sagrika and then Shruti? Here's my point. Sadaran listed some advantages that he believes Shashi Tharoor has over Mallikarjun Kharge. Let me add one more. A good story to take to the people. Now, I'm not saying Mr. Kharge doesn't have a story of his own. He does. But Shashi Tharoor seems to have an appeal, many would argue, even among those who don't vote Congress. I have personally sort of observed this. There is a cross ideology kind of appeal because he speaks to what Sagrika called the aspirational constituency, the new Indian looking for a good story. Arvind Kejriwal has a similar good story, which is why he's creating a reasonable amount of noise while taking on Narendra Modi. My question to you is this. Who in the Congress is your candidate to take on Mr. Modi in 2024? Is it Mr. Kharge or is it Mr. Gandhi or is it one of the Gandhis?
See, Barkha, number one, as Mr. Sadanand and you both mentioned, I would like to say that the election process is now over. Unfortunately, people who are fond of Shashi Tharoor, I have nothing against him, but they are not the voters of Congress party. So the voters have elected Kharge Saab, and Shashi Tharoor, of course, is a very respected leader, and Congress party will definitely frame out a role for him. Now, as far as
you haven't answered my question.
I'm coming to your question about the face. Who will be the face of Congress party, you asked. Let me tell you that in 2004, Congress had no prime ministerial face. And on the other side, it was Atal Bihari Vajpayee and the Shining India campaign, which it was a very vast campaign. And of course, Vajpayee was a bigger face than Narendra Modi also. But Srimati Sonia Gandhi led Congress party to victory. We formed government in 2009 again. We formed the government. Srimati Sonia Gandhi gave Dr. Manmohan Singh as the president. So it doesn't matter to Congress. It's basically the ideology or the issues which we are going to frame in the forthcoming elections that are going to win us elections. It's not about face now. It's about the ideology. It's about the current issues in the country and how the Congress party is going to frame its campaign, which Kharge Saab and the other leaders will collectively frame out.
I did remind Professor Shubhajit the other day that there was a time in the last Lok Sabha election when Rahul Gandhi's Janayu, the Brahminical thread, was invoked by Randeep Singh Surjewala. So if you're talking about caste, let's also remember that. But Sagrika, when you hear the Congress representative of the program saying ideology, issues, that's what's going to frame our sort of strategy going forward. Are they reading the writing on the wall? And do you agree with Sadanand that this conversation should accept as a given that only a Gandhi can actually lead the Congress into its future, whatever that future is? Sink or swim, it has to be with the Gandhis at the wheel.
So I take what Saranand is saying, and but I don't agree with it really, because you see, the Gandhis are now in a stage of the sixth generation dynast, which is subject to diminishing returns and leading the party, Barkha, not to defeats but to routs, successive crippling routs. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra led the campaign, Congress campaign in UP, and the Congress got 2 seats. So, it's whether the party should only be led by the Gandhis, it's existentially constituted around the Gandhis, perhaps there's an argument there, but the fact is, it is the political challenger, it is the opposition, it is the main opposition. And as such, because of the crisis it finds itself in, it must look to alternative leadership. I mean, this is simply, mother's milk and apple pie. I mean, you just have to look for leadership that can win you elections. And, coming back to the point about Mr. Sapra about elections, there are elections in 8 weeks. Does the Congress remember? There are elections in Himachal Pradesh and Gujarat. I mean, it's all very well to do Bharat Joro and to have your ideological, sort of churning about your values. But are you going to fight elections in Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh? Now, Ashok Gehlot has just said that ours is a low-key campaign in Gujarat. What does that mean? Are you not going to fight elections? Are you not interested in fighting elections? Who are the leaders today in the Congress, Barkha, who can win elections? Ultimately, how do you revive a party? You revive a party by winning elections. I'm sorry to sound simplistic and journalistic, but a party cannot be revived by the Bharat Joro Yatra optics. That launches Rahul Gandhi, relaunches Rahul Gandhi for the nth time. It doesn't relaunch the Congress. It's good for brand Rahul. It's not good for brand Congress, because the brand Congress is still in a position where it's organizationally unable to win elections. So who in the Congress today can win elections? Who in the Congress today can do that organizational reboot, the organizational restructuring that is necessary to win elections?
I think that's exactly it.
Congress, you have to win elections. And how are you going to do that? Mr. Jairam Ramesh, 4-time Rajya Sabha MP, very cerebral. He can't win elections for the Congress. Who's going to win elections? Digvijay Singh, wonderful leader, veteran leader, but his best days are behind him. Veteran Mr. Kharge, I have a lot of respect for him. His Dalit background. Remember, the Dalit token label did not work with Charanjit Singh Channi in Punjab. Punjab was a disaster under Charanjit Singh Channi, even with his Dalit background. So, we can't get lost in background in community either here. We need, I think the Congress needs, sorry, not we. I will again be accused of lamentation.
wait for the trolls.
How is Shashi Tharoor Latvians? He's from Thiruvananthapuram, yeah. How can he be even called Latvians? I mean, this is really the worst kind of stereotype.
Sort of
so, the thing is, who in the Congress today is going to win elections?
Okay. I was going to go to Shruti, so make it brief, Mr. Sapra, please. Yes, go ahead. Briefly. Mr. Sapra, go ahead.
Yeah, briefly, I would like to say, Sagarika spoke about, the organizational structure and about Rahul Gandhiji. Of course, yes, Rahul Gandhiji is a vote getter for Congress party, but he's not the only organizational structure with us. We have an organizational structure.
He's losing election after election. How is he getting votes?
Please allow me to speak, Sagarika ji. Please allow me to speak. Yeah. See, we have an entire organizational structure in Himachal Pradesh as well as in Gujarat. Jagdish Thakur is a very effective former member parliament who's the president, who's the chief of Gujarat Pradesh Congress Committee. Likewise, Pratibha Singh is there in Himachal Pradesh. Rajiv Shukla is in Himachal Pradesh. Shrimati Priyanka Gandhi has gone there. Raghu Sharma is
let's see what the
making
results
the entire
are.
strategy in Gujarat since last 7 months.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you short, but Shruti's been waiting a while, and I think there's an important point being raised here. If the Gandhis cease to win elections, or rather continue to deliver routes, one election after the other, Shruti, the Congress today on its own is in power in only 2 states, in other states in alliances. Will Sadanand's theory still hold that there is no other way to organize power internally in the Congress but around the Gandhis? The Bharat Jodo Yatra is skipping Gujarat. there are many reasons offered for it, but I just want to underline that point. Elections are there in a few weeks. The yatra isn't even going through Gujarat. I don't think that's great signaling for party workers who are taking on a triangular contest in Gujarat. Please do go ahead and respond to that.
Yeah. Thank you, Barkha. I'll try and be quick. Lots has been said. The first thing is
Yeah.
that I will actually agree with an interview you did with Prashant Kishore, which actually said that the Gandhis are actually the single largest selling point of the Congress, whether one likes that or not. I don't fully agree with that. I think what actually stands in favor of the Congress today is its actual ideological clarity on Hindu nationalism, which has not been there in the 90s or the 2000s or even the 2010s. And this marks, actually, there are only two political leaders who have taken a consistent stand against that. One is Lalu Prasad Yadav and his son, Tejasvi Yadav, and the other is Rahul Gandhi and his version of the Congress. So that in itself needs to be put on the table. Secondly, I think India is in a different arena of politics. It is not politics as usual because we do have a majoritarian state in operation, and it's going to be very difficult to mount a challenge. It is not normal party politics in India by any yardstick, and I don't want to go further into that. And the third thing is, just as a matter of fact, that actually 3 to 4 states were won in 2018, by the Congress. Under whose leadership? That's neither here nor there. But it's not that there's just been routes. It's just that India is going through a massive churning, which is actually a huge challenge to anyone who is opposed to Hindu nationalist politics. And I think that is the question. It cannot be isolated and made into a soap opera of the family, which is repeatedly, going on and on. And it's true that and as I said, the Bharat Jodo Yatra is actually about the remaking of this ideological field in which the party may gain or may not gain. But it has to have a fight back. It has to have a fight back, right? And elections
okay.
are not everything. Elections are really not everything because, if you do.
But for a political party, what else is there? For
no,
Sadanand, you wanted to come in? Yeah, okay.
Chicken and egg. If you do not remake the party, how are you going to win? If you're only going to win on the basis of transactional politics, which has been the story of the Congress since actually the UPA era, when it had too much power and transactional politicians, and they go move in and out of governments, which is why governments have fallen. This is a churning process, clarifying ideological clarity, just the way you can again thank the BJP perversely for this, because the BJP is a very ideologically clear party. It's a cadre-based party. And this is, in a way, what you're seeing in the
but Shruti, it could be said that the Congress therein is rewriting its own ideological history. Sadanand, let me bring you in. This was the party that was the big tent party. This was the party that had space for all ideologies leaning from left to right. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee at one point was part of Nehru's cabinet. All of that. Sadanand, to Shruti's point, that this is a moment of churn to re-clarify the Congress's ideology from transactional to actually standing for something. Go ahead.
So I want to disagree with her on 2 quick points. The first is that I actually think elections are critical in a democracy, and you can't just say, well, yes, of course, there's more to politics than elections, but elections are absolutely critical. And if you lose elections, and if you lose 2 national elections back to back, you're not even able to get into triple figures. That's a party that is obviously in crisis. So that's the main thing. How do they have a way to get out of this? In terms of ideological clarity, I think part of the problem is that they haven't really had much of an ideology for many years, right? Their ideology has sort of been that, whatever the Gandhi family thinks. I remember the figures in the Congress who were, for example, very pro-liberalization in the 1990s, but then by the 2000s, when they felt that, Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi thought it may have gone too far, too fast, they sort of changed their views. There's no real ideological consistency. The best that you can say about them is that they are not hostile to Muslims and Christians, which is a good thing, obviously. But beyond that, I don't see any great clarity, and I don't see any ability. And this is the nub of the matter. I see no ability for them to reimagine themselves in a way that takes into account the realities of the Indian electorate and the fact that one party, the BJP, enjoys an overwhelming advantage in funding, in media presence, and in every other way. I just don't see that on the ground.
Okay, can I get in Subhajit and then we have to take last comments? Professor Subhajit, people have also made points about what they see as Shashi Tharoor's ideological ambiguity. He has ferociously contested that. I think you were making this point the last time we were speaking. But ideology by itself, without personality, without a plan, without a story to take to today's voter, what is that going to achieve?
Well, Barkha, this is an era of Indian era, let's say, where we need an ideological reset. We need to basically, sort of press that button. And, which is why Kharge has been a man who has been vociferously, making an ideological points. If you hear his parliament speeches, these are vociferously taking on this, socio-political juggernaut of BJP and RSS. On the other hand, you have Shashi Tharoor, who calls Mr. Modi that he's a dynamic and a very very man, who after winning the UP election, he goes and does the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, and what has happened to the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So, and he never calls out the Uttar Pradesh, government, the way the Uttar Pradesh governance is run today. It's a complete mess. How the atrocities on Dalits, how the atrocities on Dalit women, the gang rape and things like that, Lakhimpur Kheri,
No,
Hathras, and all of that. And Mr. Tharoor has
what is
never.
your suggestion? What is your suggestion here?
So,
That
so,
he is
so
that
my
he is
point is,
soft. He is soft on Mr. Modi. What are you actually saying?
well, probably yes, because if you, and let me remind you again that he wrote a whole book called Why I'm a Hindu, and if you read the whole book back to back, and he basically balances
But
there,
the Gandhis did temple
and
very
now
designed for
coming
cameras
back.
temple runs. Hang on. The Gandhis did very designed for cameras temple runs. They also flaunted their Hindu leanings in a way that they hadn't in previous election. Every politician is trying to find their sort of space vis-a-vis this sort of new, very public political manifestation of Hinduism. So if Shashi Tharoor does this, have the Gandhis not done this?
I
Subhajit.
have no love for Gandhis. Let me make it very, very clear. And especially Mr. Rahul Gandhi, when he gave in to the BJP's ideology and showed that, his Janayu, and said that I am also a Sanatani Kashmiri Dattatreya Brahmin. So I lost complete faith on Gandhis. So now my point is that how many of us have basically torn into Gandhi's way of politics rather than coming heavily on the Mallikarjun Kharge, who has just taken over entire Congress system.
Okay.
So the point is that we need to indict the Gandhi family and Gandhis, and none other than Dr. Ambedkar himself has given historical criticism of Gandhis and the entire Gandhi
But
structure,
I
the
think what
system.
you're mi-
And none of us
I think
have basically
yes,
successfully given that.
I think what you're missing actually is that we are not indicting Mr. Kharge. We are those who are indicting the Gandhis. There is a sense that he's an extension of that status quo. But I need to start taking last comments. I will start with you, Shruti, and then Sagrika, and then Sadanand. Shruti, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I don't really have much to say, but to kind of many more to add to it, but to actually say that this is not, I mean, you can't win elections without actually a movement or mobilization. This is actually also the lesson of the Hindu nationalist BJP's rise to power. It had to mobilize for a good 25 years to come into power. And that's kind of what has happened in the Congress. I agree with, with Shashi Tharoor today, who has just said that this is a revival of the party. And I think this doom, gloom, crisis story is one which has now become a soap opera, which is actually of diminishing return for analysis. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks incredibly different because it's actually the party structures of India which are going through a major shakedown, whether it is in terms of caste, whether it is in terms of federalism and region. And that is precisely because you have a very hegemonic party state in operation in India. And I'll leave it there.
Okay, Sagrika, one of the interesting comments from Shashi Tharoor in the last few minutes has been that he describes himself as a candidate of change, not a candidate of dissent. I would argue that the party needs dissent. The party needs dissent, and that's the point. Without dissent within, I mean, where is the party going to go? Shashi maybe is toning it down today after losing, but certainly during the campaign, he said business as usual is not going to win the Congress elections. Isn't this business as usual? Or is the mere fact of holding this election after 24 years some sort of significant change that we need to acknowledge?
It is hopeful, Barkha, as you rightly say, the mere fact of holding these elections. And, I have to point out, Shashi actually hasn't done that badly. He's done better than we thought he would. He's
Yeah.
actually got more than 10% of the vote. And I've just been told by my very alert news reporter that, in fact, in 1997, Sharad Pawar got about a similar percentage of the vote against Sitaram Kesri. So, he's got over 1,000 votes. It's not a 99.9% victory for Mr. Kharge. So I think that, perhaps there are stirrings of change. Are there stirrings of change? I think you're right. I think that, this election itself is a sign that the Congress perhaps wants to change but can't. But, come the 12th of December, when we will have counting day, if the Congress is again wiped out in Gujarat, if it is again wiped out in Himachal Pradesh, then where will we be with the Bharat Joro Yatra? Is the Bharat Joro Yatra actually going to have an impact on electoral fortunes? It's there in Karnataka, but, that the elections are a while away there. So, what I'm trying to say is the Congress has to decide, does it want to win elections or not? And the only way it can revive, the only way any party can revive is by winning elections, is by pursuing power. Sadly, that's politics. And because the Gandhis have failed singularly, it makes sense to have alternative leadership. What is needed is organizational reboot. I actually want to go over a wild tangent here and give you a hint of the article I'm writing. Why doesn't Rahul Gandhi form his own party? He should form Congress R, Congress Rahul, because he has so many ideas for change. He wants to meet the people. He's meeting people. I think he's doing a great job in the Bharat Joro Yatra. He's coming across as someone who's listening. He's got the optics right. Like his grandmother, he should break the Congress and form his own party and, perhaps start a whole new political movement there.
Well, there are those who would argue that in some ways the Congress has been almost razed to the ground, so he has enough to rebuild from. But Sadaran, last word to you. Shashi has been quoting Rumi on Twitter. Before that, he's been, there it is. If you're irritated by every rub, how will your mirror be polished? This can be interpreted in a million ways. But, to your argument, Sadanand, that this party can't be led by anybody but the Gandhis. I think Sagarika raises an interesting hypothesis. One more round of routes, will that still be the case? How far can a string of defeats actually sustain the Gandhi family as being the people in control, even of family firm, as you call it?
So let me end by disagreeing with you, Barkha. I don't think the Congress needs dissent. I think they need competence and charisma. And they have to find it somewhere, and they have to find it within a structure that appeals to their own party workers and their own party culture. Unfortunately, with that culture, that ends up giving them just a couple of choices. They have Rahul Gandhi and they have Priyanka Gandhi. Now, Rahul Gandhi, in my view, has been tried repeatedly and he keeps failing. I believe that it's time to cut bait. Priyanka Gandhi has not done too well. I think Sagarika pointed it out in UP, but maybe she's failed less often. So maybe there's still some. She hasn't really
but
been
she
tried.
hasn't shown 24/7 engagement
Correct.
with politics, right?
But
So
eventually those are the only choices that this party has. If these family members are not able to step up or they continue to fail, what will happen is what's going to continue to happen. Mamta will eat their lunch in Bengal. KCR will eat their lunch in Telangana. Jagan will eat their lunch in Andhra. Kejriwal will eat their lunch in Punjab. And this is just what, it's a process that we've been seeing over for actually more than 8 years. We've been, going back to the 2012 UP election and 2008 and 10 Bihar election. It's a party in crisis. And, perhaps Professor Kapila thinks it's a sort of, soap operatic mode of analysis. Unfortunately, that is also a mode of analysis that fits the votes that people may give. So we have no other choice. So unless they start winning elections, we can't change our frame of analysis.
I think these are circular arguments. I think you cannot win elections till you do not remake a political agenda. And that's kind of what is happening. Whether you think Bharat Jodo is a success or not, the party or whatever those people have decided that these are delinked. And those results could be seen in 24 or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look forward to the Congress winning in 2052.
I don't think. I mean, look, I'm not into the betting game here, and I'm not into such virulent attachments to anyone personally or against them. I'm actually analyzing this from a distance from how it actually is unfolding. So I'm not
Okay.
attached either negatively or positively to any individual.
Well, let me say dispassionately that the bottom line will have to be the metric is only one. It has to be the winning of elections. After you reset ideologically, if that ideological narrative isn't converting into votes at some point, and whatever the time frame the Gandhi set for themselves, if they're skipping this election, is it the next one? At some point, people will say either you don't have a good story, or you don't know how to tell a good story, or you don't have the right person to tell this story, or maybe all of the above. For now, we'll have to leave it there. Sagrika Sadanand, Charan Singh, Subhajit Shruti, thank you to our audience. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.